joining us this afternoon. We will be discussing how you can submit a successful application to graduate business programs. So just to jump right in, um, as again, I am representing Pepperdine University's Graziadio School of Business and Management, and I'll show you a picture later. But our main campus is located in Malibu, California, which is just north of Los Angeles. It's really considered within the greater Los Angeles area in California. And so hopefully you'll be able to learn more about a little bit about Pepperdine Graziadio, but also I want to talk generally about graduate business programs, the application requirements that you may see where you're applying to Pepperdine or other business schools across the United States, and some next steps, which you should start working on as you continue this journey into enrolling in a graduate business program. And like it was mentioned earlier, we will take questions at the end. I will leave time for that. So a quick introduction into who I am. Again, my name is Travis McAllister, and I am a recruitment manager for our full-time recruitment programs for the Graziadio School of Business and Management. And so my expertise will be discussing the full-time MBA program. In my office, we also have full-time Masters of Science programs. Graziadio School of Business and Management also offers part-time MBA programs. We offer executive MBA programs and a President's MBA program. And for some of our students, if they're trying to complete a Bachelor's of Science and Management, we have programs for that as well. As you can see the picture in the slides, this is a view from an aerial view of part of our campus. And as you can see, we are right on the Pacific Ocean. So we would love for you to come and visit and take advantage of this lovely view that I see every day. And so let's talk about some of the graduate business programs that you will see as you apply to a variety of programs. Many of these you will see listed are what we offer at Pepperdine Graziadio. But again, you will see many of these programs at a variety of graduate business schools that you apply to. Starting with the MBA, one of the more common graduate programs that you can do. And there's several options that you should think about. There is a full-time program, which means you will normally take classes during the day. You may have some evening classes, but the majority of your classes will happen during the day. The part-time programs, PT, at Pepperdine we call it our fully employed MBA, and so this means that you are working. Our students have a job, and they have employment, and they are working to complete their MBA in the evenings. The executive MBA, our executive MBA students are taking some classes during the weekends and some evenings as well. You're looking at a practical application of what you have learned, what you will learn in those classes, and we do have several areas of concentration which we'll talk about in the future. And within the MBA, there's also an online MBA. So for our students, our online MBA is very similar to our part-time MBA, but it's done online. And if you have the option to do that, especially if you're in the California area, there's also an option to complete some classes in the classroom. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about some of the MBA programs. Moving over to the right, you will start seeing more and more Masters of Science programs, MS programs. And so again, many schools offer full-time options and the part-time Masters of Science programs. At Pepperdine, our students take a variety of those. We have several full-time programs, and we do have offers a couple of part-time MS programs as well. And these are in different disciplines. We have 7 different disciplines for our MS programs at Graziadio. And keeping in mind when you're thinking about the STEM and what STEM, if you don't know, we're talking about science, technology, engineering, and those are and math, and those are the courses that we're talking about. So if you have a degree in STEM, you have the option for a 36-month OPT, which is optical practical training. And so When you think about that optional practical training that you could take, this means that once you finish your degree, you can continue to work in the United States for a certain period of time. For our MBA programs, that's usually a 12-month OPT, but for some of our MS programs, you will see it's extended. Um, at Graziadio, we also offer the Bachelor's of Science in Management, which is a part-time Bachelor's of Completion. Again, you can do it online or on ground, and our students get a significant head start on a graduate degree where they can do a pathway into an MBA. Many schools also offer the dual degree option, and I know at Pepperdine, our students can choose between a JD MBA, so they get a business degree and a law degree, or they can get an MBA with a Master's of Public Policy. Um, so that means you're combining programs, which means you're taking time off the total amount of time that you would do to complete that program. For instance, for JD MBA, our students take, instead of taking 5 years total, they combine it into 4 years. And for an MBA, Master's in Public Policy, our students combine it into a 3-year process. And so our students are looking at tuition savings, and there's also the opportunity for specialized certificates that you can receive in these programs. And so thinking about some of these concentrations, and so depending on where you're applying, many business schools will have a variety of options when it comes to either what students can focus in for an MBA, or what students can take and get a Master's of Science degree in as well. And you see a list of them. Some of the more common disciplines would include finance and marketing, human resources, entrepreneurship, accounting, real estate. Some schools even offer hotel management. At Graziadio, we offer uh, for our students, they can get a concentration in finance, uh, marketing, um, and they can also get um, a master's in applied finance, a master's of science in human resources, a full-time and a part-time option. A master's of science. We just started a program in real estate. And then there's also an opportunity to get a master's of science, uh, depending on where you're applying in a variety of these options. And so of course, you're thinking about the questions that you see on the side. I want to talk about these a little bit again. I mentioned them on the previous slide. Um, Things that our students start to look for is your degree a STEM designated degree program? And so again, when you're thinking about STEM, you're thinking about is it science, technology, engineering, or math? And when you're in these degree programs, many of them will let you know that they are STEM. And so when you're looking at what you want to get a degree in, these are things that you should think about. Um, I know at Pepperdine and Graziadio, our STEM programs would include a Master's of Science in Applied Finance. We have a Master's of Science in Applied Analytics. And those two are particularly our STEM designated degree programs, which means for our international students such as yourself, that optional practical training is extended from 12 months to 36 months. And so, again, that OPT gives you the opportunity to continue working and applying what you have earned your degree in work in the United States. And so, many of our international students take advantage of that. So you want to think about, is this an option for you once you complete your degree program? All right. So without further ado, I would like to start talking about the application requirements. And you see a quick list here, and I want to talk about, we want to spend some time talking about all of these in the time that we have. And then, of course, this is where many of you will start having questions. I will say, as you start thinking about some of the questions that you're wondering about, if you have any questions for Pepperdine in particular. We may be able to talk about some of them in general on this call, but I would like to also give you the opportunity to contact me directly offline so we can talk more about what Pepperdine offers, and then if it's another program, I can direct you to the proper recruitment manager. So we want to use this call for general application requirements and how to submit a successful application. And so, looking at this list, we're going to spend time talking about a lot of time talking about the things in the middle, your essays, resume, the testing. The standardized test is a big deal, particularly for students that are coming from outside the United States. And so we want to spend a lot of time talking about those as well. And I have some preloaded questions that will help us with this discussion. All right. So if not all schools are doing this by now, I would say the vast majority of schools allow students to apply with an electronic application. So, the only things that will come via paper or that have to be mailed in would be transcripts and other supporting documents that we will talk about later. At our school, our students submit applications electronically. And so that's something to keep in mind. It's an easy, quick submission. There will be application fees that are part of this process, and for every school, it's going to vary. I've seen fees as low as $50, and I've seen fees as high as $250. So that's U.S. dollars. So that's something to keep in mind. Letters of recommendation. Some schools require them. Some schools they're optional. At Pepperdine Graziadio, we do not require letters of recommendation. And then there's also the interview process. At Pepperdine Graziadio, we do not require an interview as well. And so when you're thinking about some of the questions that may come from this, if you are in a process where letters of recommendation are not required, can you still provide it? Short answer is yes. If you have someone who you feel can give a compelling account of what you have done and why you would be an excellent candidate at a business school, feel free to provide that information. Keep in mind that many admissions teams, their admissions committees, they are looking for evidence that you can succeed in a work environment. They're looking for evidence that you have worked, that you have some work experience, and that you have been able to work on a team. So thinking about letters of recommendation, many schools discourage you from using professors because professors are only going to talk about how you succeeded in their class. Now, if you have, and I think it's up to you to decide whether or not, if you decide to use a professor, is this professor going to speak to, is it going to give a well-rounded account of who I am and what value I bring, or is this professor just going to talk about how I performed in class? And so I think, especially if you're in a situation where the school is requiring letters of recommendation, this is where, if you have work experience, you want to use the people you worked with, at least one supervisor. And so that's something to keep in mind. Interview process. Every school's going to do this differently. Pepperdine, we don't require interviews for our applying students, but what we do have is if a student has a questionable application, there's a red flag on the application, the admissions committee will ask someone like me, a recruitment manager, to speak with that prospect. And on a few occasions, we may have a prospect who notices that there's a red flag on his or her application and would like an opportunity up front to clarify what that red flag is. What do I mean by a red flag? Red flags would be gaps in work employment. Red flags would be a low test score. Red flag would be a low GPA. Or we ask to see your transcripts. Red flag would be you have a D or an F, and you have failing grades on any class on your transcript, but particularly a key class. So those are things that you feel that may come up as a question mark on your application, and you want to get that addressed. Or the admissions committee may also feel that they want to know what's going on with this. You know, does this applicant intend on retaking the GMAT? Can this applicant address why there are gaps in the work employment based on the resume? So those are examples of what could be red flags. So for you, you would like to you should think about if you have anything, particularly whether a school is requiring an interview or not. Is there anything in your application that you would like to address? And when it comes to your essays moving forward, the optional essay is a place where you would want to address that. So if you have a situation where you want to address that, you may not test well. Some of our students, when you think about these testing, the GMAT or the GRE, these tests are not made for everyone, but they are made to give schools an idea of how you will thrive in that business school and how you can handle the business school rigor. So when it comes to any red flags, that's where you want to address it in your optional essay. And again, do your research. Go to some of the schools and ask the admissions professionals there. Some might not mind that you have something very unique that you want to address, where you may come from a very unique background and you feel that you didn't get to talk about it in your required essay, so you want to talk about it in your optional essay. So some schools will allow you to do that. Some schools frown upon that. They only want to see if you have any things of note on your application that you would like to address. And so that's something to keep in mind. You want to provide all the good information for your application, but you don't want to provide too much where it's unnecessary. And so when it comes to, what examples of what you should address in your optional essay, I recommend any situation that is what I would call a red flag, low test scores, low GPA, gaps in work environment, gaps in work experience. You should want to address those ideas for your optional essay, particularly if it's a blank slate essay, such as you see on my bullet. Is there anything else you would like to address? Some optional essays will have pointed questions, and so feel free to answer those questions. Now, moving up to the required essay, in my vast experience, and I didn't talk about my experience before I came to Pepperdine, but I spent several years working as a recruiting manager at an organization called the Consortium for Graduate Study in Management. And the consortium recruits domestic students who are committed to certain backgrounds, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans. So as a recruiting manager with the consortium, I worked with 18 of the top 30 business schools in the United States. So I've seen many ideas of what schools are looking for, especially the top schools. And when it comes to the required essays, they're looking for your short-term career plans. They're going to ask you, what is your goal with this MBA? How would this MBA or how would this master's degree help you to reach your long-term goals? They're going to ask you that question. So if you have not put any thought into why you want an MBA, this is the time to do it. Okay, talking about our resume. You want to upload a current resume to the electronic application. Now, if you talk to someone at your university, your career service professionals, they will request that you have several versions of a resume. They will recommend that you are always updating your resume. For those of us who are on social media, uh, you may not have to update it as often as you do a Facebook post or some of the other social media posts that you may make, but you want to have a current resume. So anytime that a new accomplishment is done, put it in the resume. You want to make sure that you have an updated one, uh, and so make sure you're checking that. Some additional tips that I would give. Simple tips, as you can see on the screen, but you would be surprised with how many students don't do these tips because they're waiting till the last minute to submit an application. Check for errors. I would have someone look at my resume. Someone who you know has a critical eye and will think about what's on your resume and not just say, yes, this looks great because they're your good friend. So check for errors. Check for misspellings. Um, I think it's, sometimes it may be a bigger deal for those who are native English spellers that, we want to make sure that you really are checking for those errors. But even if you're not, have someone else look at your resume to see if there's any misspellings, if there's any errant punctuation on your resumes, and if it makes sense, everything makes sense. Relevant experiences. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about if things on your resume make sense. If you are applying for a graduate business program and you have, and you're talking about something that has nothing to do with why you are wanting to get that graduate business degree, you should reconsider whether or not that should be on your resume. And this is up to you to decide. And if you have someone else who can work with you on this, please take advantage of that. Job experiences are, very key for this. And I do not want to discount anyone's job, whether you work at a bank, you work at a top financial institution in the world, or if you work in a retail location locally. Think about what you have done there that may prepare you for this graduate business degree. Many MBA programs value teamwork, and you will be working in projects in these programs and working with other groups of people. Some MBA programs have cohorts, so you'll do a lot of things with the same group of people throughout your time in that program. And so when you're thinking about relevant experiences, how have you worked with other people? And it can, and you want to have that in your resume. Keeping your resume brief. Now, there's several different ideas for this, and you could talk to 10 different resume experts and may get 10 different ideas about this. I can tell you that a 5-page resume is not the most optimal thing to do. I've seen 1 to 2 pages. I think that is perfectly fine. But you want to, again, this is where you think about what's relevant. What is the most thing to discuss on your resume? And that's when I also mentioned, naming results and accomplishments, not just responsibilities. I'm a recruitment manager at Pepperdine, so a responsibility of mine is to do webinars like this one, to go and travel to different cities to recruit more students like I'm doing later today when I'm traveling to San Francisco. That's a responsibility of mine. An accomplishment is to say I presented in front of 400 people. Of those 400 people, I had 100 inquiries for our programs, which led to 25 applications, which is a 10% increase from the previous year. So think about what your accomplishments are, not just your responsibilities. And so that can also help you keep your resume brief, because you're only talking about what you have done, not just what you are getting paid to do. So, that leads into my question. What experiences have I seen on the resumes of successful applicants? They are putting out accomplishments. They are, when you're talking about increasing what you have done the year before, they're putting numbers out there. So it's more quantitative instead of qualitative. They are saying, particularly, and I think this is very important for those of you who may work in the business field, where a lot of your accomplishments are based on what you have produced in numbers. So you have dollar amounts and you have percentages that you can report on and that you can point to say, this is how I have done at this position in the last 3 years. I can talk about, I had a 200% increase in profits. That's just a very bland example, but that's what we want to see. Again, you want to talk about your accomplishments and not just what you are responsible for doing day to day. Work experience. And so this is something, again, for your research that you need to look for. I would say for all the top MBA programs in the United States, you're going to need work experience. And the average amount of work experience for these top MBA programs is looking at 4 to 5 years. That may not be the requirement, but that's what when you will go to those business schools, that's what you will see. Your colleagues, your classmates will have that amount of work experience. At Pepperdine Graziadio, we have with our several MBA programs, our 20-month MBA program students have at least 1 year of work experience, and it's 1 year is required for the 20-month MBA, which is similar to the 2-year MBA at other institutions. Our accelerated MBA students, our 12-month and 15-month, we require 3 years of work experience. For our Master's of Science programs at Pepperdine, we do not require work experience. But this may be different at other schools. And so you want to check out that information as you're doing your research. Many schools have a student profile or a class profile on their website where you can see all of this information and more. Things I'll talk about later, such as average GMAT, average work experience, average age, average undergraduate GPA. You will be able to easily find this information on their website. So go look for that information. If you get an opportunity to do a webinar with other schools, and hopefully through Education USA, you will get to see that they have that information as well. So do your research on this. Great question that I've gotten before. How relevant should my work experience be? It does not matter what your work experience is as long as it fits the criteria for that school. For Pepperdine, when we say work experience and you see the numbers above you, we're saying full-time, post-undergraduate degree work experience. And that's for full-time programs. For our part-time MBA programs, that's going to be different, but you still need some amount of work experience. And again, it doesn't matter if you're working at the top bank in the world or in your country, in your area, or you're talking about retail, or you're talking about McDonald's. If you have work experience, you can be able to speak to that. So it does not matter if, we're not looking at someone who worked at a top bank and say, well, they get more credibility over someone who's worked in a retail position. It doesn't work like that. But you need to be able to explain how, what you have done at that job. And again, talking about those accomplishments is key. All right, standardized testing. So a lot of graduate business programs are going to ask you for either your GMAT or your GRE. And these tests have to be taken within the last 5 years. They're not valid after 5 years. So again, not every program will require this. At Pepperdine, Graziadio, for our MBA programs, particularly the full-time MBA, we require the GMAT or the GRE. Doesn't matter which one. For our Masters of Science programs, some of the more analytical ones, or the more STEM-based ones, like our Applied Finance and our Applied Analytics, you need to take the GMAT or the GRE. But for our other Masters of Science programs, we do not require the GMAT or the GRE for those programs. So that's something to keep in mind. Do your research for that as well. Quick question that is not listed that I always get: does it matter which one? Do you prefer GMAT or GRE? We do not prefer one over the other. Now, having said that, I can say that the GMAT exam is designed specifically for business school. The GRE is designed for any graduate program in general. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, you want to think about your experience and how you feel you will do. So do some research on these tests and see which one might be, you feel you might do better in. But it really doesn't matter among schools which one you take. Pay attention to the averages. When you see on websites that they identify a GMAT average or a GRE average score, that does not mean that you have to make that score, and if you're anything below that, you're not being considered. It does not mean that necessarily, but again, it shows you how you can compare in relation to the other students at your school. So at Pepperdine, our GMAT average for the full-time MBA program is 640. That's out of 800. For some of our master's programs, that average goes up a little bit to 650 or 660. GRE average is for our MBA program full-time is 310 to 320. So that leads to the question, do I still have a chance of being admitted with lower than average test scores? Yes, you do. Now, admitted, yes. Now, when it comes to scholarship money that you may receive from schools, a lot of those scholarships, such as the one at Graziadio, is going to be merit-based. So the higher you can get on those standardized tests, the better your chances of receiving scholarship money. So that's something to keep in mind. But our admissions teams are looking at a variety of opportunities. They're looking at a variety of characteristics: GMAT or GRE score, GPA, looking at the strength of your application, your essays. For schools that take recommendations, they're looking at that as well. For the schools who require interviews, they're looking at that as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not you're admitted and whether or not you get a scholarship. And so you could still have a lower than average test score, but if you have a high GPA and you have and your transcript shows some success in some of those top classes, the quantitative classes, you have an opportunity to be admitted. Now, the low on the GMAT is a 200, and that's basically like a 0. That's like an F. So you want to, you don't want to. If I'm telling you the average is 640, you don't want to, you don't want to look at it with a 300 and say, okay, I got a shot. You will be prompted and asked to retake that GMAT if you want to be considered for schools, and so that's something to keep in mind. So lower than average, I'm thinking 600, 550, maybe even as low as 500. But that's going to vary by school, and it's going to vary also by the other students who are applying when you're applying. How many times should you retake the test to improve your score? That is a personal preference. A lot of schools don't like it when you take it. Let's say, if they get the official test report and you've taken it 7 times, that does not seem like the best thing to do. But 2 or 3 times is what I've seen from many of our students if they're retaking it 2 or 3 times is optimal. All right. So this one is an important one for all of you. So many schools will require you to take an English proficiency test. And at Pepperdine, Graziadio, we require an English proficiency test if you earned your undergraduate degree in any language other than English. So if you earned your undergraduate degree in English, you should be fine. If you did not earn it in English, you will be asked to take the TOEFL or the IELTS or any other test that may be out there. You can see our average scores for our full-time MBA students that I've listed here, or for all of our full-time students at Graziadio. Our average for TOEFL is 100, and our average for IELTS is 6.5 bands. So again, that just goes back into that question. If I am an international student who earned a bachelor's degree in the United States, do I still need to take the TOEFL? The answer is no. Earned your bachelor's degree in the United States, you do not take the TOEFL. If you earned it in English, you will not be required to take the TOEFL. But if you have any questions, always reach out to the admissions teams at those schools to verify. Transcripts. So every school is going to want to see your official transcript. Some applications will allow you to upload your transcripts to the application website. However, before you are enrolled at that school, if you're offered an admission offer, you will need to still have that official transcript, which is stamped and sealed and mailed to the admissions team. So again, that must be received prior to your matriculation into that business school. So talking a little bit more about transcripts, this is what we can talk about at your GPA. And so again, this varies by program. At Graziadio, you see our average GPA numbers listed. For a full-time MBA, we're on the lower end at 3.3. For some of our master's programs, it goes up to 3.5. Any transcript that's outside the United States must be certified and translated into English. Again, if it's not already in English, if your instruction is not in English, you will need to have that transcript translated and certified. And we have a credential service called WES, and we have that information on our website. So that's, again, something that you should look into to make sure that that is done, because that will be part of the application as well, and your application will be stalled until that information is received. Looking for a GPA on a 4.0 scale, which is what we use in the United States. So some quick questions. What can I do if my GPA is below the average? Again, your application will be evaluated holistically. And so within reason, if you're at a 3.2 in a STEM course like biomedical engineering, I think that looks a lot different than someone who has a 3.2 in psychology or basket weaving. I'll say basket weaving, since I don't think that's a real major. It doesn't offend anybody. So keeping in mind that what the admissions team is looking for, they're looking at a variety of things. They're looking at your GPA. They're looking at your transcripts to see what kind of classes you've taken, particularly any math-related, quantitative-related classes. And they're looking at how you've done on the GMAT or the GRE. Those are important. So you're not going to be disqualified for GPA unless it's very low and you don't have a lot of quantitative coursework in your transcript. But at the same time, it does not matter whether or not you have taken any business courses. A big myth is that for graduate business courses, particularly in MBA, that the majority of them have taken classes. They have a business degree undergrad, and that's not the case. Many, our MBA students come from a variety of backgrounds. A lot come from business, but a lot come from engineering. Many come from the liberal arts, teaching. There's a lot of different backgrounds where our students come from. And so that's something to keep in mind. You do not have to have taken business courses. You don't need to have a business background. But that's where, again, you need to have strong numbers. All right. So we've talked about the application requirements and what you will see on a lot of graduate business applications. So what happens from here? You can see this is, again, a view that I would see from my office in Malibu looking at the Pacific Ocean. Where do you go next? Where do you go from here? So start thinking about, as you start thinking about your application, start thinking about financial assistance as well. I mentioned how we do have scholarship opportunities. For our MBA, our full-time MBA programs, we have merit-based scholarships primarily, and we're getting more scholarships for our Master's of Science programs as well, which will be important for those of you, those of you in India, because you will not be able to receive any other financial aid from the United States, as you see in the middle of the slide. And so those merit-based scholarships are going to be important. Otherwise, you will be getting loans if you need financial assistance to pay for your education. But we do have opportunities for student employment as well. So whether it's graduate assistantships, research assistantships, or teaching assistantships. So we have some of these at Graziadio. You should do your research and make sure you're looking for this at other schools where you may be applying, because I know financial assistance is very important. And of course, start applying. At Pepperdine Graziadio, we have a few more deadlines for enrolling in the fall of 2017. Our next one is coming up February 1st. And for you in India, your last deadline will be April 1st if you're trying to enroll in the fall of 2017. Now, this may be different at other schools. Other schools are going to have their own deadlines. Some may already have stopped taking applications for fall 2017. So if you're looking at enrolling for the fall, go to those school websites and check out their information. If you're looking at Pepperdine, here's what our deadlines are. All right. And so that concludes my presentation. And so in the time that we have left, we have about 15 minutes left. I want to open this up to questions. And so if you have any questions, start typing them in so I can answer them. And as you start typing in your questions, you see on the bottom of this screen, if you have any questions that you have particularly for Pepperdine, for our business school and the full-time programs, you see our contact information starting from the right. Our website, bschool.pepperdine.edu, you will see all the information there for the full-time and the part-time programs. You see our email there, gsbmadm@pepperdine.edu. Whether you're asking for MBA or master's programs, if you send an email there, it will get to the appropriate recruiter. And then there is our phone number. So keep in mind that, again, you are in India, you are 13 and a half hours ahead of us. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're making phone calls and emails. You are half a day in front of us, so keep that in mind. So I see a question. First question I received. Thank you, and keep those questions coming in. A lot of business programs have multiple rounds of admission. Why is that? And in what round should a student apply? And so a lot of programs have multiple rounds of admission because it really sets out, for one thing, we do it for ourselves. We do it for our own goals internally of helping us to really manage the amount of applications that come in. It's also done for the student. For those of you who are applying, you're going to be at various stages in the application process. And so some students know as early as the summer where they want to apply, and they want to get that out the way. And some of them also tier it off. So they say, I'm going to apply to 5 schools for November. I'm going to apply to another 5 in January or February. And then if I don't get into any of those schools, or I don't get the offer that I want, there may be schools with later rounds, and I want to do that as well. And so it opens up opportunities for not only for the business schools to really figure out where they are when it comes to how many students they want to select and how many more students they should look to select, but also for the prospects to say, how many schools did I get into? Is there an opportunity to get into another school if I still want to get a graduate education? For you, what route should a student apply? That is on you. The answer I give is you submit your application when your application is ready. So I want to go back really quickly, since I have control of the slides, just to go back and show you again, if you're looking at our deadlines for Pepperdine, if you're an international student, which you are, you have until April 1st. And so if you were applying for the fall of 2017, if your application is ready now, you can apply for February 1st. At our school, it will be about a 4-week decision process, so it will take 4 weeks for you to receive an admissions decision. And so you have plenty of time to take care of that. And then April 1st is the final deadline, and we have a deadline that's separate for our international students, because if you are offered admission, you got to get a visa. You have to take care of that paperwork to come into the United States. And that can be a 6 to 8 week process. And so giving you plenty of time to take care of all of that, so that you're not worrying about that and running for the last minute in August. I see a follow-up question: is round 1 the most competitive round? Because a lot of students seem to think that it is. I would say round 1 is the round where the students who, in my experience, the students who are very strong, they have high test scores, they know exactly where they're going, or they have an idea of where they want to apply, and they apply for that first round. I don't think it's the most competitive round, because for round 1, when you're thinking about how many spots a school has to fill, all of the spots are open in round 1. So I don't think it's competitive in that sense. I think the pool of applicants that a school receives are some of the top. They're some of the top of the top. And that's what happens in round 1. They're applying out front. That still does not mean that you won't get in if you are applying, because, again, there are a lot of spots available for that first round. And so I see another great question on the same note: are funding opportunities equal across all the rounds? This may vary by school. At Pepperdine, I will say yes. Funding opportunities are equal. The difference will be how many spots are available. So, first, how many spots are available? I'm going to take this another step and go and talk about our scholarships. So, we have merit-based scholarships at Pepperdine, and for example, if let's say we have 25 scholarships, full value tuition scholarships, and we've taken in 50 students. We do not take those 25 scholarships and just give it full value to 25 students, and then the other 25 have nothing. We would rather split it up along the way and give students, again, based on merit, we're giving students a little bit of everything. So there's students who will receive, up to, it could be 80% of their tuition covered. It may be students with 10% of their tuition covered. But we would rather split the money up and give more students that versus giving a select few all of the money and the other students have nothing. But again, that's going to vary by school. Great question I see here. And the question is, for someone who is interested in finance, what is the difference between an MBA in finance versus an MS in finance? I think this is a great question, and it's something that, honestly, for myself, I'm thinking of doing a webinar on, just to talk a little bit about, you know, should you get an MBA versus get a master's degree in an MS in business. So what's the difference? And this is going to be for some of the other concentrations as well. An MBA is a general degree. It's the more common general business degree, and it gives you the general skills that you need. So, you could get an MBA and have a finance concentration, and you can go to a financial institution and you can work in finance, get a finance job. But then let's say you see a promotion, and they're going to see that you have an MBA, and you can get a promotion that may not quite be in finance. It may have some finance aspects, but it may be in a different field at that same job or at a different job, and your MBA is giving you the skills to do that. Your master's degree in finance is going to be specialized for finance. And so when you're looking for a job later, again, it's going to be based on what the job is looking for, but are they going to say, are we looking for someone who specializes in just finance, or are we looking for someone who has the basics in finance, but also when it comes to expanding that person's role, they will have the opportunity to do other jobs later. And so that's something that you should think about. At Pepperdine, we do have a finance option, but we also have we definitely have a master's in applied finance, and that is a shorter program. And so again, you want to think about, do I want a specialist degree in finance, or do I want an MBA generally in finance? Great question. What other questions do we have? Still have 5 minutes? I can also tell you, for those of you who are interested, as we still wait on a couple more questions, for those of you who are interested in the MBA, we do have an MBA webinar coming up next Wednesday, January 25th, and that's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I'll let you do the math for what that looks like for you in India. The cost of the Pepperdine MBA is going to be, and it's going to go up every year. For this year, it's $23,900 per term, and we break it down as a flat rate per term or trimester. For the 20-month MBA, you're paying for 4 semesters or 4 trimesters, and that's the same for the 15-month MBA. For our 12-month MBA, it's 3 terms. Now, for part-time MBA, that may be different, but that's the price for the full-time MBA, and that's very comparable to what you would find at some of our other MBA programs in Southern California, like the one at USC or UCLA. And so, again, you want to think about, when you're getting MBA, it's a big commitment financially. You're looking at, depending on the school, if you're looking at a top program, you're looking at just between tuition and the cost of living, everything, you're looking at anywhere between $45,000 and $50,000 per year. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking for MBA programs or even graduate business programs. It looks like we're running short of time. I am going to type in the chat box my personal information as well. I don't mind you emailing me if you have any questions. I would love to talk to you, particularly about Pepperdine, but also about any questions you may have about this presentation. Anytime you would like to, I would love to talk about you, and that's travis.mcallister@pepperdine.edu. So again, thank you all for joining me this afternoon for you and this morning for me. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Travis, so much for taking time out and making yourself available to do the web session with us. I would like to thank our attendees as well for listening patiently and for throwing those very important and relevant questions. This webinar has been recorded and is going to be made available on our YouTube channel sometime very soon. With this, I would like to draw this session to a close. And just so the attendees know, the coming week, the webinar that we are doing is going to be conducted by the Association of American Medical Colleges. It is going to be on attending a US medical school. With this, I would like to draw this to a close. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I'll see you all the coming week. Thank you and goodbye.